All right, so the very first thing we need to wrap our heads around is this, and it's kind of wild. The Bible, it's not really one book. Nope. Think of it more like a library, a collection of 66 completely separate books, all brought together into one volume.
Yeah, a library. And get this, it wasn't built overnight. This library took over 1,500 years to put together. We're talking about dozens of different authors from totally different time periods and walks of life.
And when I say diverse, I mean it. The lists of people who contributed to this is just staggering. You've got a king writing poetry, a shepherd writing songs, you've got fishermen, a tax collector, and even a doctor writing these incredibly detailed historical accounts. What a crew. So you might be asking, what holds all these different writings together? Well, the core belief found inside the text itself is this idea of divine inspiration. The concept isn't that God literally dictated every single word, but more that he kind of breathed his message through these human authors, letting them use their own unique voices and styles to get it across. Okay, so how did we get from all these separate scrolls and writings to a single cohesive library? Well, our journey begins in the first major section of that library, the Old Testament. And you gotta understand, this took a long time. We're starting way back, around 1400 BC, with what's called the Law of Moses. Those were the foundational texts for ancient Israel. Then, for the next 1,000 years, a millennium, more books were added. History, prophecy, you name it. Finally, around 450 BC, you have scribes who take on the huge job of gathering and organizing everything. So by the time Jesus was alive, the Old Testament, as we know it, was pretty much set. All right, let's fast forward a bit. We're moving to the next section of our library, the New Testament. And this part, as you probably know, is all about the life of Jesus and the story of the very first churches. Now, compared to the Old Testament, this part came together super fast. I mean, the Gospels, the stories of Jesus' life, were all written down within just a few decades of the events themselves. At the exact same time, you have the Apostle Paul writing all these letters to new Christian communities popping up everywhere. The whole thing was basically written and wrapped up by about the year 100 AD. So who decided which books made the final cut? Well, it wasn't some secret committee in a dark room. It was actually more of a grassroots thing. By the end of the 2nd century, the early churches all across the Roman Empire were already consistently using a core set of books. The later church councils, they basically just put an official stamp on what everyone was already reading and considered authentic. Okay, so the library's built, the collection is there. But now for the next massive challenge. How on earth did these ancient writings survive for thousands of years to get to us? This next part of the story about how they were preserved and translated, it's just incredible. First things first, what were they even written in? Well, the Old Testament was almost all in Hebrew, with a little bit of Aramaic sprinkled in. But the New Testament? That was written in Koine Greek. Not some fancy classical Greek, but the everyday, common street language that everybody spoke back then. And this leads to the million-dollar question, right? For centuries, there were no printing presses. Every single copy had to be written out by hand. So after all that time, after all those copies of copies, can we really trust that what we're reading today is what was originally written? It's a fair question. Well, believe it or not, archaeology gave us a jaw-dropping answer. In the 1940s, a shepherd literally stumbled upon a set of ancient jars in a cave. Inside were the Dead Sea Scrolls. These were manuscripts that had been hidden away for 2,000 years. And when scholars compared them to our Old Testament today, they were virtually identical. It was unbelievable proof of how accurately the text had been copied. So how did they pull that off? How did they keep it so accurate? Well, a few ways. For one, the scribes who did the copying were incredibly careful. This was sacred work for them. Plus, we now have thousands of manuscripts from all over, so we can compare them and see how consistent they are. And on top of that, we can read the letters of early church leaders. And guess what? They're quoting the New Testament all the time, so we can see what the text looked like way back then. Now look, are there any differences between all these ancient copies? Yes, of course. But we're talking about super minor stuff, like a spelling difference here or a different word order there, the kind of things that don't change the meaning at all. What's absolutely crucial is that no major teaching, no core idea has been changed or lost. The message is intact. Okay, so the original text is solid, but most of us don't read ancient Hebrew or Greek, right? So how did it get into English?
Well, that's another epic journey. It started with a Greek translation of the Old Testament. Then, for 1,000 years, the Latin Vulgate was the standard. And then you get game changers like the King James Version in English, which just blew the doors open for all the modern translations we have now.
And all of this brings us right to now, to the final part of our story, how this ancient library went from dusty scrolls to something you can hold in your hand or even on your phone. I mean, the scale of this is just mind-blowing. The entire Bible is available in over 700 languages. But if you count just portions of it, we're talking over 3,000 languages. It has reached almost every corner of the planet. There's really nothing else like it in history. And what made this massive distribution possible? Really, it comes down to two world-changing inventions. First, the printing press, that took it from rare and handwritten to mass-produced. And now, digital technology. The fact that this entire ancient library can live on your phone is, historically speaking, a flat-out miracle. So the next time you pick up a Bible or just scroll through it on an app, take a second. Remember what you're actually holding. It isn't just a book, it's an entire library. A library that took 1,500 years to write, survived thousands of years of meticulous preservation, and took a massive global effort to translate, all just so it could reach you. It's an absolutely incredible story of survival. So the only question left is, after a journey like that, what message does it hold for you?